Spending summer in Europe is a bucket list activity for a lot of people. But unfortunately, before you get there and sip on your Aperol spritzes, you have to pack first, which is unfortunately not the most fun activity. But after a decade of living in and traveling around Europe, I feel like I have kind of mastered the ins and outs of packing efficiently. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you all the must-knows and tips that you need for packing for your European summer. In case you're new here, hi, I'm Christina from happytowander.com, and this channel is all about practical travel tips from someone who's been there, done that. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, be sure to like and subscribe. And today I'm actually going to be packing for a trip of my own, for a 3-week trip that covers a lot of different occasions and climates. So I'm going to be going to Paris for the Taylor Swift concert, I'm going to be going to Venice, and then traveling south to southern Italy around Puglia and Matera. So a lot of different climates, temperatures, occasions, but I'm going to show you the way that you can do that smartly without even needing to check a bag. Now we're gonna get started with my first tip, which sounds weird, but please hear me out. It's something that a lot of people don't mention, so I'm gonna do this one first. And that is that during your summer in Europe, make sure you pack a scarf or some kind of cover up. Now I know that sounds really counterintuitive, but something that not a lot of first timers realize is that in certain countries in Europe, they do actually have strict dress codes for when you enter churches. In countries like Italy and France, for instance, they often have a dress code where you can't show your shoulders or your knees. So a really good trick around that is to just bring a thin, lightweight scarf or a thin cardigan, some kind of cover up that fits in your day bag. And that way you never have to worry if you spontaneously see a cool church you want to visit, you know that you can go in a respectful way because you have a cover up. So yes, in the past I brought a scarf, but for this trip in particular, I'm gonna be bringing a lightweight cardigan just because I feel like that's a bit more versatile. So just something that I can throw in my bag, really thin, nice, throw it over, shoulders are covered, and it looks cute. The other reason bringing something like this would be important is because even during the hottest months of the summer, it can still be quite chilly in the evenings. And also if you're along any coastal areas, then the wind can actually be really fierce. And a lot of people don't expect that, especially when they're going to places that are known as beach destinations. But honestly, the wind can make it really, really cold. So it's always a good idea to at least have some kind of thicker layer. And I would also recommend bringing a jacket of some kind as well. So for me, I tend to bring a denim jacket or maybe a nice oversized shirt that you can tie up, something that can transition from day to night, just because you're gonna wanna be packing versatile pieces. Of course, whether or not you need to bring a cover up is gonna depend on the temperatures and specifics of your destination. So my next tip is really to, when you're researching what to wear, make sure you are being as specific as possible. I think a lot of first timers will just Google what to wear to Europe, not realizing that Europe isn't just one big identity that's the same all throughout. There are actually a lot of variances within the continent itself. So what you would wear in Paris isn't necessarily what you would wear in Dublin, for instance. So make sure you are being as specific as possible when you're researching what to wear. And this goes for fashion norms as well as temperatures. Generally speaking though, I would advise packing clothes that kind of err on the dressier side of things. So as you can see from what I've packed, I haven't really packed any athleisure or t-shirts or anything like that. And of course, the most important priority is that you're comfortable. But generally speaking, I would say European casual is a bit dressier than North American casual. I know, for instance, back home where I'm from in Vancouver, wearing athleisure just out is incredibly common. And of course, I love that. I love taking advantage of that when I'm home. But in most European countries, it's actually not super common to be wearing athleisure outside of the gym or outside of a workout class. So I would say packing things that are a bit dressier overall is going to be better. So for instance, one of the tops that I'm bringing is like a little blousey thing like this. In terms of bottoms, what I'm bringing are these flowy long pants or trousers if you're from the UK, rather than jeans, just because I feel like they're more versatile, they can work for day and night. Now, speaking of erring on the dressier side, an example of that would be if you're choosing sunglasses. Personally, I would only bring one pair. If you had the choice between either dressier Ray-Bans that can work even with a dress or a cute outfit if you're going out, whatever, these compared to sporty ones, like these ones that I would probably bring on a hike or something, again, err on the dressier side. So that's how I would make my decisions. Another example of this would be footwear. For instance, I don't actually ever pack flip-flops unless it is just 100% a beach vacation. Instead, what I'll pack are sandals like these that are a little bit dressier and can work as kind of like walking through town and also work for the beach. And trust me, when these are on, they can also pass for dinner shoes as well if you're not going to an overly fancy place. So I just feel like something like that would be a better use of space compared to flip-flops, which are only really good for one purpose, which is the beach. All to say, erring on the dressier side is definitely key. The one major exception to this though is actually nightlife. So again, this depends on where you're going, but I would say overall European nightlife is more casual compared to North American nightlife, where you're very likely, if you're going clubbing, to dress up to the nines, wear really tall heels, wear glittery dresses, things like that. Whereas in a lot of European cities that I've been to, it doesn't seem super common to be dressed like that unless you're going to a big event. Again, it depends on where you're going though, so what you would wear for a night out in London would be very different from what you wear to a night out in Berlin, so be sure to look into that. Now, besides the aesthetics, one thing to really keep in mind with packing for summer in Europe is the material as well. So depending on when you go, summer in Europe can really be quite hot, and you're gonna be doing a lot of walking, you're gonna be spending a lot of time outdoors, which means you want fabric that's gonna be breathable. And so something you really want to avoid are synthetic fibers like polyester or anything like that that's going to trap heat in and not really allow your sweat to kind of wick off you and not allow you to really breathe. Now, I know that linen is a very popular choice when it comes to summer fabrics, especially for Europe, because it looks very put together, it's very airy, breezy, etc. But for me, I don't actually tend to pack it very much. For instance, I have this pair of linen pants that I love, they're super cute, but having traveled with them a few times, they're just not gonna be practical for a long trip like the one that I'm doing, especially because I'm changing hotels every few days. And as you can see, you know, this is straight out of the wash, right? It gets really wrinkly, and so it's not necessarily the most resilient fabric to be bringing on your trips. Instead, a very unconventional fabric that you should look into is wool. And I know that sounds weird because summer and wool don't really go together, but hear me out. If you've been on my channel before, you have probably heard me talk about merino wool. And I've talked about this in my winter packing video because it makes such a great base layer, but actually merino wool can be a really great material for the summer as well. So on that note, this week's video is brought to you by Unbound Merino, a really great Canadian company that specializes in merino wool products like these. And again, a lot of people think that wool is a thick fabric, but as you can see, these two tops are 100% merino wool. They're very thin, very lightweight, and very breathable. And so what's really great about merino wool is that it wicks moisture, it's wrinkle resistant, it's resistant to bacteria, mold, and mildew, which means that you actually don't need to wash it very often, which I know sounds gross, but is such a lifesaver when it comes to packing light. And I'm excited that they actually come in some pretty cute colors as well. So for this trip, I'm gonna have 2 of these Unbound Merino tank tops, as well as a pair of their travel shorts, and also their merino wool t-shirt dress, which I'm very excited to wear. So thanks again to Unbound Merino for sponsoring this week's video. If you wanna try them out, you can use the code Christina10 to get 10% off your first purchase. Now, another important thing to keep in mind when you're packing is to pack things that go well together. So as you can see from the items on my table, I've packed mainly black and white, but that's just a purely stylistic choice. In the past, I've also done neutrals with an accent color, but it's very important that you make sure all your tops match all your bottoms so that you can create a bunch of different looking outfits. And as much as I love a good summer dress, unfortunately, I do think if you're short on space, for summer in Europe, it does make sense to pack more tops and more bottoms rather than just dresses, because a dress is kind of like an outfit on its own, but if you have different tops and different shorts, different skirts, etc., then you're basically able to create a lot of different outfits. That said, I am inevitably gonna pack some dresses because I love them. So when you're packing dresses, what I would say is to pick a color that is maybe a little bit different to the rest of your color palette. For that, I'm gonna have this bright yellow dress, and I also, again, have this bright blue dress from Unbound Merino as well. So those are 2 of my little color pops, as well as this orange tank top, which I think is gonna look quite nice against the Italian landscapes. Speaking about versatility, as I mentioned before, one of the things that I'm gonna be doing on this trip is I'm going to a Taylor Swift concert. So as you can imagine, the clothes that I would wear to that wouldn't necessarily be what I would wear frolicking around southern Italy. So instead of packing a really glittery getup, which is honestly what I ideally would have done, I chose something else that would be able to be worn for other occasions throughout the trip. So instead, what I did was I was super extra and I designed my own skirt. I'm not gonna go into too much detail, but basically it's inspired by her latest album, Tortured Poets Department, and yeah. So it's got lyrics and stuff printed on, but again, it's black and white. But because it's quite subtly Swifty, I can just match it with another one of my tops, accessorize it a bit differently, and I can get away with wearing this as well. So just keep that in mind. Bringing versatile pieces is really gonna be key. Now, on a similar note, it is important that you do pack your suitcase based on your itinerary. So I think a lot of people aren't necessarily type A people who have an itinerary put together, but for the sake of efficient planning, you really should have some idea of what you're going to be doing day to day. And with that in mind, then you can choose the items that you're packing. The last thing that you want to do is pack things just in case, which I know is very common. And so having an itinerary prepped is going to prevent mistakes like packing 6 swimsuits when you only have 1 pool day or 1 beach day scheduled. So make sure you are looking at your itinerary and planning according to that. Now, a very common question I get is about footwear and whether or not you should bring hiking boots on your trip to Europe. And my answer to that is only if you're hiking. Honestly, you're not going to need hiking boots to just walk around a regular European city. You'd only need them really if you're planning on actually doing some hiking. So remember, pack according to the different occasions that you know you have planned. And then if the just in case pops up, I mean, you're in Europe, it's not going to be difficult for you to buy things just in case. And I've kind of hinted at this throughout the video, but another important tip really is to just make sure you're packing as light as possible. And this is something that I tend to do for every trip. I tend to say, pack light, don't check a bag, it's better that way. But especially in the summertime, I think this is important because there's something about that European heat that makes carrying a suitcase absolutely miserable, okay? And you don't want to be stuck bringing a giant suitcase onto the metro, onto the U-Bahn, wherever you are, because it's just the worst. You know, dragging a suitcase across cobblestones is not fun any time of the year, but it is infinitely worse in peak season crowds when the sun is bearing down on you. So definitely pack light as much as possible. And again, packing versatile pieces, packing lightweight fabrics, all the tips that I've given you previously is going to help with that. Now, I should also mention it's not enough to just pack light as in pack in a small suitcase. It is increasingly important these days to actually pack light as in weight-wise to not go over the limit that they state. And once upon a time, you know, that limit seemed to just be a suggestion. They very rarely weighed cabin bags especially, but these days, airlines are starting to crack down and they're starting to do it. So worrying about the weight of the suitcase is more important than ever, which is why I'd recommend, again, not packing as much. Next, let's talk about shoes. So it's a very common question I get, what type of footwear to bring for summer in Europe. And to be honest with you, because I am packing light, I actually tend to only bring 2 types of shoes. The first is a pair of really comfortable trainers or walking shoes. This is a pair of Nike Air Force Ones. I would bring something like this that is white so that it matches all your outfits, and something that can go just as well with shorts and dresses as with more casual outfits. And I would also bring a pair of dressier sandals. So again, I don't bring flip-flops, I bring sandals like these that look nice enough and are still very comfortable to walk in. So they're suitable for the beach, but also just walking around the city. And as you can see, they're looking a bit beat up. So you know I use these religiously. And these ones are from Skechers. I find their shoes really, really comfortable. You'll want something that's quite thick and has like good tread and grip as well, which I find these shoes really do. So generally, those are the 2 types of shoes that I would bring. Again, I wouldn't bring high-heeled shoes unless you know you're going to a fancy event. And that's just because European cobblestones are no joke. You want to be prioritizing comfort above all else. So that also includes not wearing brand new shoes that you haven't had a chance to break in yet, just because you want your shoes to be comfortable. So that is the #1 priority. If you wouldn't walk hours in those shoes, do not bring them. Now, in terms of other things to bring for summer in Europe, one I would really recommend is a water bottle. And that's because a lot of major European cities actually have refillable water stations where you can go and get free water. And if you go to big cities like Rome or Paris, they actually have sparkling water fountains, which just blew my mind the first time. So make sure you're bringing a refillable water bottle. If you're packing really light, I would advise one of those collapsible ones. Or if you don't think you have space for it, then at the very least, get a bottle of water and use that, just because there are so many free water fountains in a lot of places. Another item worth bringing is a portable charger. So portable chargers are really handy because you need juice for your phone when you're on the go. And especially in the summer, I've noticed that batteries are quicker to deplete. So having this, I have this really thin one from Inu. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but this is the one that I use. And because when you're traveling, you're gonna be using your phone a lot more. You're gonna be taking photos, using your phone to navigate, etc. So you're gonna want to have a portable charger as a backup for sure. Another thing you'll want is an adapter. So a European adapter is necessary for you to use any of your electronics to be able to charge them. So I definitely recommend getting a universal one like this one. And on top of that, I would make sure any electronics that you're bringing are dual voltage. So a really good example of a tool where you need to check the voltage is hair appliances. So oftentimes, if the voltage is different, then if you plug it in without a power converter, what'll happen is this can actually fry and stop working. So you don't want that to happen. Luckily, I've got my Dyson hair straightener, which is dual voltage, so no problems there, but depending on what you're bringing with you, make sure you are checking that it is dual voltage or is compatible, or otherwise you're bringing a power converter to make sure that you're not frying all your gear. Another good item for summer in Europe is a big tote bag. So I'd recommend bringing a good day bag like a backpack, but as well as that, a nice tote bag is very ideal for summer in Europe if you're gonna be going to the market, getting picnic food, going shopping, going to the beach. It's great to be able to just throw it all in a big sturdy tote like this. This one's from Daunt Books in London, really nice bookstore. And finally, I should emphasize the importance of bringing enough underwear and socks, because honestly, you can rewear all of this, but re-wearing underwear is a little bit dicier, so make sure that you are packing enough of that. Generally, what I'll do for longer trips is I will pack enough for 1 week, and then I will plan to do laundry. And you can either use the laundry service at your hotel, or a more cost-effective option is finding a laundromat, or even more cost-effective is getting something like a laundry sheet so that you can wash your laundry in the sink and then hang it up to dry, which during the summer it shouldn't take too long. But again, having fabrics that dry quickly can be really helpful for this. So things like merino wool, for instance. All right, thank you so much for watching. I hope that was helpful. And if you want more practical travel videos just like this one, be sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.